Yes, you are in the right place. I know you were expecting a guy with a t-shirt and a hat, but you know, sometimes you have to grow up. At least you have to try to trick people into thinking that you are a full grown-up adult. Yeah, sometimes I manage to do that. This is our third video in our journey of you becoming a software engineer. In our latest video, you learned a little bit more about the Java basics, and in this video, we are going to talk about arrays and collections. That's one of the fundamentals of software development with Java. To be honest, like with any other kind of programming language, you're gonna need to work with arrays and with collections. I swear I'm trying to make those videos as short as possible, but sometimes it's difficult, so let's see if I can manage this time. Now that you know everything about variables and how to store information, let's say that you need to store any kind of list. So think about it, that you're creating a system where you have to store all the users of your system. You could do something like this. String user1 equals John. String user2 equals Zach. String user3 Mary. Now, what if your system has 2 million users? Are you going to create 2 million strings? Not ideal, right? So in Java you have two ways to store those kind of structures. You have arrays and you have collections. So let's first talk about arrays. In order to create your array, you declare a little bit different than what you're used to. So think like this. So you just type string as usual, but then you add those brackets. And you're gonna call this users equal new string 3. So what happened here? I'm creating a variable called users. It is a string, but it's just not a regular string. This says to the compiler that this is an array. So that means that you have a list of strings. And what size is that list? It's 3. So you have 3 positions for this. How do you use this? So let's say that you want to set all the users in that list. Then you can do it like this. Users 0 equal John. Why 0? You know why 0, right? Because Java index starts at 0. Users 1 equals Zach. And users 2 equals Mary. How can we print that? What happens if I just type this? So I'm printing the users. What happens there? You see? I got this. What is this? This is the memory representation of this object. That's not what we want, right? What do we want? We want all those values we put in here. How can we check that? There's a class called arrays from the Java util. Just hit enter, dot toString, and then you type users. So this is a class and this is a method called toString from the arrays. What happens if you run it now? Here it is. If you're using IntelliJ, at the moment that you put this, you're gonna see something different at the top of the file. Import Java util arrays. What is this? If I remove this, you see there is an error. What did the error say? Cannot resolve symbol arrays. Thing is, so the string class, for example, it is in a basic package. Think about a package as the address of the class. So this class needs to be somewhere. So I can, for example, type this package con.test. This is just a name. So if someone wants to find my class, this is the address. It's con.test.hello. And what the compiler says is that he can't find the arrays. Why? Because we need to explicitly say where it is. I know that this is in the java.util. So I can do this, for example, java.util.arrays. Then it works. Problem is, if I need to use this again, I will always have to type this. So what do? We remove this, and then we use import. Import java.u2.arrays. Now the compiler knows that it can look somewhere else. He says I can't find in here in this directory, but we are importing Java u2 arrays, so that's why it finds. Just a brief explanation of how the import and package works, but I'll go deeper on this when we go to the object-oriented video. So again, if you just hit play, here it is, John, Zach, and Mary. By the way, are you subscribed yet? Please do. Now let's say that you have all your users array in your system, and now you have to print each one of them. How do you do that? You can come here, for example, and type users 0. So you can say this, hello So hello John, hello Zach, hello Mary. Nice. Again, what happens if you have 1,000,000 users? Are you going to do system out print around 1,000,000 times? Not ideal, right? There is something that you can use for iterate all those lists, and the same for collections. We'll go there later. Java provides loop statements. How can you use that? So you can use for. That means every time you do a for, what you're saying is, I want to iterate my list or my array. I want to go over each item in my list. The first thing is to create a variable that's gonna be the current record. So I'm gonna call it string user, then you use column, and then your array, in this case, users. Okay, so what I'm saying is, I want you to go over each of the user inside my users array. And then what I do is, hello user. Once we run this, hello John, hello Zach, hello Mary. So you understand what's happening here. You have an array. That array has 3 items. When you create a for statement, it iterates, it goes over this list. So the first one here is going to be John. So then it prints hello John. Then it's going to go back again. Hello Zach, then hello again. Then go over again. Hello Mary. Once it's over, it just goes outside of the for loop and we're done. This is, let's say, new way to do this, because this was implemented in Java 5. That's, I feel old saying that this is new, because when I started we didn't have that. I was working with Java 1.3 and 1.4, and at that moment we didn't have that. Just so you know how it was. So before we had that kind of for, that's called for each. If you type here for each, you see, it already creates like that structure for you. So how we used to do that? So int I equals 0, I less than users dot length I plus plus. So you're probably thinking, what on earth is this? So before we had the for each capability, what we had to do is to create a for like this. So first you create a counter. So I, this is just like someone created an I and now everybody used the I, but you can call this whatever you want, it doesn't matter. So you create a counter, say, hey, I have a counter, it's 0. While this counter is smaller than the length of my list, in this case is 3, I plus plus. What does that mean? It means that it's going to increment my variable. So once it iterates the first one, this is going to be incremented. Then I equals 1. Then again, I equals 2, then I equals 3, and then 3 is the size of our list, and then it's going to stop. So if I come here, hello, old way, and then what I do is users I. Let's run. John, Zach, Mary. Same way, much more complex. Again, always, it's good to know, but you don't really use that anymore. You can even use streams and other things, but I'll go deeper into that later. For now, that's everything you need to know. So you already know how to create an array, and you know how to iterate that this way and in the other way. That's much, much easier. So this is the native way to create a list of users, but this has a lot of limitations. So what happens if I try to do this? So I'm saying that my array has 3 positions, but I'm assigning 4 times because I'm also assigning the 4th one. What's going to happen? I'm pretty sure you know what's going to happen. Array index out of bound exception. Index 3 out of bounds for length 3. So what you're saying is you are trying to assign this string to a position that doesn't exist. Because again, as we started on the 0, if you're saying position 3, that's actually the 4th position. So in order to that work, you have to increase the size here. Okay, now it works. That's not ideal, is it? So that's one of the limitations that you have when you work with arrays. And to be honest, when you are working in real life projects, 99% of the times you're not going to use arrays. Java has something called collections. So collections are objects that were created exactly for this kind of thing. So let's remove everything and let's start from scratch. So there is one of the most famous lists, array list string users equals new array list. So a few things happening here. I could do, if I just did like this, I'm pretty sure you're familiar, right? I have my object, my name, and that's it. Thing is, Java implemented at Java 5 something called generics. Before, when you created something like this, the compiler doesn't know what kind of object you are going to insert in that list. So by definition, everything that you insert there was a kind of object. So there is an object called object. You see, object. Every class in Java extends object. That's like everything that you create, a string, a list, a collection, anything. Everything is a subclass of object. So when you type this, at this moment you are saying this is a list and the objects inside this list is a string. So that makes life easier. So let's do the same thing that we created there, users. Now instead of adding the position, what you're going to do is to use a method that the array list class have. And that one is called add. And then you can put here John. So let's just copy, Mary, and Zach. Remember the for statement? Still remember how to do that? So if we just do for string user users, hello user, let's see what happens. Hello John, hello Mary, hello Zach. Same thing as we had when we created our arrays. Now let's try to do the same thing that we created on the arrays and we got a problem. So let's add one more, users dot add Leo. If we run that, we have it here. John, Mary, Zach, and Leo. As you can see, array list is, oh, by the way, we also have it here, Java util array list. You have to import that. If you don't import, it breaks. And just IntelliJ leaves everything gray. When you import is something that you're not using anymore. As we are not using the arrays, I can delete this. As you can see, when you're using an array list, that kind of collection can grow as much as you need. You can add 1 million users and you don't have to change anything in your declaration. You don't have to change anything in your for statement. Everything will work as long as you keep using list. So in this case, a array list is a subclass of something called list. So I can do this. List equals new array list. So I have to import this, import class. So you see, this object is different from this object. Why does this work? Because this, for example, doesn't work. So why does that work? I will talk more about this in our object-oriented video, but just being very brief about. Array list is a type of list. So think about it that this class has the same methods and the same attributes as list. So that's why it works. Basically, we have three kinds of collections in Java. The most common one is probably list. The other one is called set. And the other one would be map. I'm not going to show you anything about this because I'm going to have a new video only about this. But basically, list and set, they are quite similar. The biggest difference will be the list maintains the order of the items that you add. Set doesn't. Also, set doesn't allow duplicates, but list does. Array list is probably the most popular implementation of this, but we have linked lists. For sets, we have hash set, we have tree set, plus many others. Maps, also hash maps, probably the most used implementation. And again, the biggest difference, like those two, they work, visually speaking, they kind of work in the same way. But maps work with a key and value system. So again, don't need to pay too much attention on this because there's going to be another video about that. But for now, you just need to know that you have many different ways to create your lists. And right now, we are just focusing on the array list because that's probably one of the ones that you are going to use more. And again, I can just use this list string users equal new array list. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I even dressed it up for you guys today. Slowly you are getting all the knowledge that you need to become a software engineer. I know this can be overwhelming, but I believe in you. You will get there. If you're enjoying this, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.